Obama's back in the news. She's obsessing over race again. I know you're shocked. Shocked. Here's a little bit of that from the Storehouse and Friends podcast this past Sunday. Top 54.
If I hear of someone whose fashion that I like and I know that they're a person of color, I try to make it a point. But the clothes have to be available. You know, I think we can all do some work to think about that balance in our wardrobes. You know, what does our closet look like and who's in it?
Megyn Kelly is drawing a line in the sand after a resurfaced Michelle Obama quote set the internet ablaze. And this time, the backlash is moving with incredible speed. While some critics are labeling the remarks as openly divisive, others are shouting that the footage has been stripped of its original context. So, what did the former First Lady actually say to ignite this firestorm? Where did this statement originate, and why is it suddenly dominating everyone's feed again? Stay right here, because once you see the full context of this wardrobe mandate, you'll realize why this debate is tearing the internet apart.
And then we live in a culture where people with power prey on fear to get more power. Again, she's talking about very clearly demonization of black people by white people so they can get more power. She's talking about Trump. I want to make you all afraid of each other. How does he do that? How? She really needs to take a hard look at the Democratic Party, which is obsessed with.
If you want to stay informed on the stories the mainstream media won't touch, please subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you might realize. Michelle Obama has built a reputation for turning the most mundane life choices into expansive public lessons. This time, however, she's turned her focus towards something the average person considers a deeply personal decision: the specific clothes you choose to put on your back every morning.
Don't you think, Britt, like the average person is just, do I like this or don't? No one's thinking about the skin color of the designer. Like, that's such a weird thing to ask us to focus on. And in that way, clothing is very meritocratic.
It just screams privileged. I don't have time, or I'm not privileged enough to have time to go and find out exactly what melanin type was a part of constructing my jeans. I just buy jeans because they look good. American.
The fallout was practically instantaneous because she didn't just spend a few minutes praising her favorite stylists or giving a casual nod to designers she personally admires. Instead, she framed the act of dressing yourself as a societal expectation that everyone is now being asked to follow.
Your time in the White House. Okay, I don't care about skin color or how we pray or how we love. We're all the same. What keeps us from seeing that is fear, right? I don't know you. You're different. She's very clearly talking about how white people view black people. So I've got to be afraid of you, and I have to make sure you don't come into my space. Okay, if anything, what we're seeing on college campuses and elsewhere right now are black affinity groups or Hispanic affinity groups into which
she went so far as to suggest that people should be actively auditing their own closets to ensure they are stocked with pieces from underrepresented designers, treating your personal wardrobe like a social justice checklist. While the goal might have been to promote visibility in the luxury fashion world, the rigid way she delivered the message immediately polarized the public. Megyn Kelly didn't wait a single beat before dissecting why she believes this entire philosophy is fundamentally flawed.
Reminding people that we're normal people. Yes, we're black, but we bleed red and we love red, white, and blue.
Oh my God. Everyone knows that. You don't have to keep reminding us that you're black, just like your friend Karine Jean-Pierre. You don't have to work it into every single conversation, and also raise it as a way of saying the country's racist. We're normal, even though we're black.
Meanwhile, Megyn's reaction was a total rejection of the premise, not because she has any issue with the immense talent of black designers, but because she believes the former First Lady is manufacturing a racial conflict in an area of life where it simply doesn't belong.
Or somehow you've fallen down on your inclusive whatever duties. Do you do that, Will? I'm sure when you got dressed today, did you look into Patagonia? Like what is the color, the skin color of those behind the brand?
Oh yeah, if they're not white, I won't buy it. Yeah, it has to be from white people, but it's imperative. Yeah. What ridiculous. They say there's all these race issues in America, and racism is the biggest issue, and we have to fight against these things. And you have the most famous people in America.
The advice doesn't land as a friendly suggestion. It feels like a new moral decree, implying that ordinary citizens should reconstruct their personal lives and styles around an identity-driven political agenda. For Megyn, This is exactly where the sentiment feels completely detached from the average American. It operates under the assumption that the typical shopper is a high-net-worth activist with a team of stylists, rather than a normal person just trying to find an affordable outfit that fits well and survives a workday. It's a worldview that simply refuses to acknowledge reality. The first major point Megyn hammers home is this obsession with using race as the primary lens for even the most basic consumer choices. There is a world of difference between saying, "I love this designer's talent and want to share their work," and saying, "You are obligated to stock your closet based on the racial background of the manufacturer." One is a genuine recommendation. The other is a directive that forces people to view every interaction through a lens of categorization. Megyn argues this mindset is toxic because it trains the public to prioritize identity over everything else.
She's promoting this fashion book that she's doing, which is such a joke. This is like me doing a book on basketball. Like, Michelle Obama is not a fashion icon, no matter what Anna Wintour tried to tell us. That's obvious. No one's inspired by her fashion at all. She knows nothing about fashion, same as I know nothing about sports, okay? That some of us just need to admit our weaknesses. But we have to go along with this. She's out there lecturing us on wokeness and America and fashion. Okay, and here's the latest offering as she sits down with Stephen Colbert.
When your daily choices, from the shoes on your feet to the sweater on your back, are filtered through a racial audit, vital factors like quality, creative vision, and basic utility are thrown out the window. What takes priority instead is whether your purchase satisfies a specific external social standard. In this way, influential figures can unintentionally teach the public to see division in places where there was previously no conflict at all. From there, the discussion pivots to the much larger social fallout of this kind of messaging. Megyn points out that when people with massive platforms constantly inject race into non-political topics, it usually has the opposite effect of unity. Instead of bringing people together, it builds a wall of tension and makes the average person feel judged before they even step out the door. People start to live in fear of being morally audited for the smallest choices. Megyn also highlights the real-world reality of shopping for most families, which makes the Obama suggestion feel completely out of touch. Families shop based on hard limits: budgets, store availability, time, comfort, and whether the clothes are appropriate for work or school. Most people aren't making a statement. They're just buying what they can afford.
Don't you think, Britt, like the average person is just, do I like this or don't? No one's thinking about the skin color of the designer. Like, that's such a weird thing to ask us to focus on. And in that way, clothing is very meritocratic.
It just screams privileged. I don't have time, or I'm not privileged.
The notion that a busy parent should stop and research a designer's ethnic background before buying a pair of pants is simply not grounded in reality. Megyn points out that only someone living in a bubble of extreme privilege could expect every single purchase to be treated like a high-stakes political manifesto. It's not just a hassle. It alienates the very people it claims to help by assuming everyone has the time and money to turn shopping into a research project. Another segment of her critique focuses on the unintended tokenism that occurs when you focus on a designer's skin color over their actual artistry. When customers are pressured to focus on identity rather than craftsmanship, the creator effectively becomes a checkbox on a list. Megyn argues this approach can actually damage the reputations of the very designers it aims to support. Instead of being valued for their unique talent, they are treated as tools for virtue signaling. The focus shifts from the beauty of the work to the social points earned by the buyer. It encourages a culture of performative shopping rather than a genuine appreciation for art. Megyn's argument highlights a larger truth. Buying a shirt shouldn't feel like a campaign contribution. She rejects the idea that you are a better person for choosing one brand over another based on identity, proving how these appeals often create more resentment than progress.
About people like Michelle Obama and like the ones who are constantly talking about how hard everything is and how, like, you know, remember she clapped back at Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In, you know, and there was plenty to criticize with Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In, but like Michelle Obama at that time was like, you know, that doesn't always work. And she wasn't talking about for working class people. She was talking about for black people. She had to play the race card when she was first lady, that, you know, you can't just get what you want if you go after it. This is just...
In an instant, Megyn uses clear examples to drive home her core message. Identity labeling has become a form of social currency that accidentally promotes a tribal mentality. Even when the motive is supposedly positive, It turns daily life into a series of exhausting calculations based on race. In Megyn's view, this doesn't move society forward. It drags us back. It trains the eye to see differences first, making even the most mundane actions a subject of public debate. In this environment, clothing is no longer about self-expression. It becomes a battlefield where your wardrobe is proof of your moral character. The panel also exposes the massive gap between the messenger and the audience, noting how strange it is for someone in a position of elite comfort to demand this level of intentionality from the working class. When a multimillionaire tells a middle-class family to curate their closet for representation, it feels like advice from a different planet. Most people can't afford boutique labels and certainly don't have the time to audit their socks for social awareness. Megyn emphasizes that this disconnect is exactly why people are rolling their eyes and pushing back. There is a massive chasm between idealized expectations and the reality of a paycheck-to-paycheck life. Furthermore, she critiques the moral pressure applied to those who choose not to participate, noting that this messaging suggests neutrality is no longer an option. If you just buy a dress because you like the color and it fits your budget, you shouldn't be treated like you failed an ethics test.
See that hideous outfit she was wearing? I'm sorry.
That's what having too much money does for you.
I've just never met somebody so ungrateful in all my life. And what did she start it off with? People said I was hateful. Because you are. She can't stand America. She definitely can't stand Barack. And I don't think she likes herself very much either. So she's been doing this nonstop tour, and I just think there's a strain. She's woke, he's woke. Yeah. There's a strain in the woke that leads you to be absolutely miserable, which is why they too should be.
Whether they mean to or not, public figures are now normalizing the idea that failing to factor identity into every single decision is some kind of moral failure. Megyn argues that this trend only serves to create unnecessary stress and social friction. When every purchase and every personal preference is analyzed as a political statement, people stop acting naturally. They become defensive, guarded, and socially exhausted. The simple joy of living is replaced by a constant anxiety over how their choices are being perceived by the virtue police. By the conclusion of the segment, Megyn's critique expands beyond fashion to highlight a broader pattern in the former First Lady's rhetoric. She notes that the Obamas often place race at the absolute center of every conversation, which Megyn frames as an attack on personal freedom. Her ultimate lesson is about the need for culture to return to civility. If we want a healthy society, people must be free to pick what they like, celebrate talent wherever it's found, and enjoy art without a heavy moral weight attached to every transaction. When a shirt becomes a proof of virtue, society becomes more cynical, more defensive, and less likely to see one another as human beings rather than representatives of a group.
Oh, you need a Maureen Callahan, or dare I say, an MK. You need somebody who's living a great life, getting after it, putting points on the board, and not spending too much of their time navel-gazing into how I don't have a tail. It's really sad, right? Like, that's her. She's an Eeyore. And it is, I think, her depression. And she's not somebody we should be seeking guidance or enlightenment from.
The real danger, as Megyn stresses, isn't in supporting diverse voices. It's in the requirement that every personal choice be turned into a public performance of morality. The panel circles back to the long-term damage of this mindset. Asking the public to constantly view their own closets through the lens of identity doesn't build bridges. It builds walls of suspicion and division. When leaders model this behavior, they make it harder for people to just relate to one another on a human level. In the end, Megyn's point is undeniable. Michelle Obama's wardrobe mandate exposes a much bigger problem. It shows how identity-first thinking, when pushed as a moral requirement, always backfires. This isn't about blocking progress or hating diversity. It's about refusing to turn your personal life into an ethical obligation to satisfy an elite agenda. Megyn insists that life shouldn't be reduced to identity math. People should be free to shop and appreciate talent without the fear of failing a social test.
Haven't lived up to their high standards, and we're essentially being called racist. Here's Michelle Obama, who's promoting a new book on her special fashion, and sat down with People magazine and said the following and sought 26.
As women of color, that the way our hair naturally grows out of our head, it's beautiful. But if we struggle to make it look like the standard, that means we are spending thousands of hours and lots of money straightening out what is naturally curly hair.
That is exactly why Megyn views the suggestion as a massive overreach. In her eyes, it's not really about promoting creativity. It's about turning the act of living into a 24/7 moral exam. It creates division where there should be unity, choosing signaling over practical reality and turning personal choices into mandatory rules. For most people, shopping is about survival, finding clothes that fit, last, and don't break the bank. It is not about auditing a designer's background to prove how aware you are. When a public figure tries to measure your virtue by the labels in your closet, it only sparks resentment and overcomplicates a simple part of life. Megyn argues that a functional culture allows people to focus on quality and personal taste. Your clothes should be a form of expression, not a test of your political purity. People should be trusted to make their own choices based on what they like, without having to navigate a constant hierarchy of identity categories. This is the only way for culture to breathe again and for personal joy to return to the simplest acts of our daily lives.